So we're live. What's up, folks? I had a crazy, crazy week as usual. So I'm a little tired. So forgive me for that. So hey Warren, great to see you. Hey, likewise, man. Great to see you. I'm glad you tuned in. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you. Just want you to know that. And no sweat, man. No sweat. It's all good in the neighborhood. How was your week? Everybody still waiting for man, I'm sorry about that. It's gonna be one of those things when you think about it, because when you have a successful product that's priced properly and it's penetrating the market, the demand is gonna be through the roof, and they got a good product here. So it may be a minute, but I'm telling you, it's definitely gonna be, worth the wait. But in the meantime, Soup, tell me, what type of music do you do? And that's what I'm interested in hearing from everybody today, the types of music that they're working on, so that we can have more of an intelligent discussion. Love the 2 other videos as well. Thank you, brother. Let's talk about the music that we're working on. Give me the genres that you guys prefer to work on, and we can talk about whether or not this compressor will suit your needs for that music. Dance hall, yes, sir. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna like it, man. Dance hall and Afrobeats, most definitely. Yep. So, I write video games, sound and music as a job. Oh, that's cool, man. Really? Wow. And fun music like soul and pop, grunge rock. Hey, listen, you got the best of both worlds, man. No wonder this super special world. Yes, sir. Yeah, but video game music is real cool. Yeah, I have a thing that when people are entertaining careers in music, they always look to what's the glamorous thing, and all of these other careers like writing for video games always flies under the radar. So yeah, you're in a good place, man. And for fun, when you come home from your day gig, this is what you're doing. You're writing pop music, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good situation. I'd like to hear some of it. If you ever post it, send me a link so I could, or your SoundCloud or whatever, so we could listen to it. I'd appreciate that. Okay, so we got 5 people. So I'm going to open up by first honoring my sister. Today is her birthday. She passed away some time ago. She didn't make it to the age of 40. She died of a heart attack. So, with that in mind, take care of your hearts, young people. She didn't expect to leave this life at the age of 38, but, she did. But today is her birthday. So in heaven, I honor her. And if you could just say a happy birthday to her, I'd appreciate that. And let's see, what's there? Waiting for the bus count. So let me read. I'm waiting for the 2. You love the 2 videos. Thank you. Yeah, I was trying to. Soup, thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man. I really do appreciate that. That means a lot. Yeah, the first 2 videos were pretty well received, considering, I think I was in the right place in terms of trying to come from an informed standpoint, only because I know that videos that I see, that I take in, I always see people, when it comes to compressors, they just like randomly flipping knobs. And to me, that doesn't inform you well enough, because in a real life situation, let's just say, for instance, ask yourself this question when you're looking at one of these videos. Are these people going to be sitting in front of a client twisting knobs crazily like that? The answer is no. A compressor is pretty much a set and forget type of situation, and if you want to set it and forget it, you have to make sure that it's set properly so that it doesn't suddenly give you an adverse effect, while you're recording, whatever source it is that you're recording. Meech, happy birthday. Says, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. I really do. I really do. Honestly, that means a lot. That means a lot. But yes. So impressions of what you heard with Dion's music. you know, and it's real. You know, one thing about the YouTube version, it compresses audio, so it's nothing like hearing the raw audio. And unfortunately, I don't have a SoundCloud page. But what I probably will do is post it on my website, and that's the rhythmstudio.net. And I'll have it so that it can be downloaded at some point, and I'll put a link up in the community so that you guys know that you can pull the audio in and listen to it for yourself. Okay, but yes, with that in mind, overall impressions of what you heard in terms of the two ratios that I used, which was 4-to-1 and 10-to-1. You know, and then I'm gonna address a couple of comments that I saw, and from a more informed standpoint. There's only but so much you could say in the comments category. So let's talk about it. Questions? Nope. Okay, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna get into the first comment that I saw, which was, okay, this came from Jordan Henry. And Jordan said it has a fat tone, however, it would have been a bit more subtle. I would have been a bit more subtle with it in a mastering situation. I could hear it pumping and squeezing the low end a bit too aggressively for my taste. But if that's the sound you're going for, then it does that very well. Nice production, by the way. Jordan, thank you very much. I wasn't the producer on that particular gig. That was Nathaniel Johnson. He just handed that off to me to assist in the mastering circumstance. I love the record. The bus compressor added a nice color went up. Yes, you won't be upset with the result you're going to get. I'm telling you, you know, for the price, there are other ones that are maybe $200 to $300 more in terms of cost, but performance, nah, you're gonna be hard pressed to find something in that price that's going to give you the same level of performance. You know, well, I need to purchase 2 different DI boxes and 2 different preamps to use with my DAW. Reamp boxes. No. You come out of your DAW. I think it's a line level source. I don't know what the impedance is on the input. That I would have to look up to give you a more informed response, if you will. But what I would suggest you do is, what you could do, here's an idea. Come back through, if you have a preamp, come back through out of your preamp into the compressor, out of the compressor, back into your DAW, and that should give you the result that you're looking for. One thing to keep in mind is you don't want to get too aggressive, you know, with setting the ratio in the beginning. So I would suggest that, you know, you just let your ears be a guide. You're doing dance hall. This is addressed to a question that Soup is asking right now. You're doing dance hall, so it's a lot of power in the bottom end. So what I would do is make sure that you craft before you come out of your tube bus, meaning your DAW. Make sure that you take care of the bottom end in your mix first. You know, don't rely on this compressor to be the so-called magic bullet, if you wish. It takes some, you know, judicious crafting of the bottom end in the mix so that you could get a better result on the output of the compressor. You know, they have to work hand in glove. And that gets right back to the point that Jordan was making about it being too aggressive in taming the bottom end. I was given just 2 channels to work with. You know, I explained to him that it would have been a more ideal situation for me to come out stem-wise. If all of the tracks were broken out into stems, then okay, well, maybe I could treat the drums a little bit differently from a stem mix standpoint, as opposed to having to treat the whole mix, you know, equally. You know, you got to get these things to balance a little bit better with one another so that you can get the result overall that you need to, you know, with the overarching objective being to make sure that you're falling within the streaming guidelines. You know, you don't want to get, you know, too far ahead or too far behind what those guidelines are. And the only way to do that successfully is to look at all of the elements as it's happening. You know, you got to keep an eye on your mix and your eye on your two bus mix coming out, going back in. You know, all these elements have to work together. You know, so if you could get all of the elements to work together, you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck out of that box. You know, my preamp is mono. Oh, well, you're gonna have to make an investment, brother. I would suggest I'm gonna have some oh, that makes sense. Just using the high pass filter. Oh no, well, see, okay, again, we're getting back to processing when we're dealing with bass heavy mixes. You could use the high pass filter for that purpose, but if you notice, like Jordan was saying, it was pumping a little bit too much for him. That might work for you. You know, some people are like, nah, I can't deal with it. And the only way to be able to grapple with that circumstance is to treat that element separately. That bass element has to be treated separately. Listen, and I've dealt with many mastering engineers in my lifetime. Every beef that they have, you go back to my video about when I sat with Carlton Batts and we were talking about, do you need a subwoofer for mixing? It's one of my videos. Should you mix with a subwoofer? I was sitting on the session when it was Keith Shockley that was producing it. As a matter of fact, he called and was like, "Yo, what's up with this click that I'm hearing at the bottom end?" The biggest beef that people have and a mix engineer has is the bottom end is terrible. It's uncontrollable. You know, so you have to really have a way to intelligently reference the bottom end being a sub, and at the same time you have to understand how much energy we're talking about. You know, we can't assume by using this unit that, you know, automatically switching the high pass to an area that's not going to affect the mix overall is going to be the problem solver, because it's not. You want everything to work, whether you're at 10-to-1, 4-to-1, 2-to-1, everything has to work together when you're punching out to A/B the effect of the compressor. So if you want everything to work together, you have to look at the elements on the whole. You know, that being vocal, which may sit in the mids, that being all your upper frequency elements like hi-hats and things like that, and your lower frequency elements, which are like drums and low mid elements like snare drums. You know, so you have to look at everything. That's why having that clarity M is important, because you can isolate things and look at them from a spectrum analyzer standpoint and say, whoa, there's a little bit too much, you know, information in the low mids. Maybe I should bring that back in my EQ a bit. You know, you could treat things a little bit more carefully if you are careful. If you just don't sit back and rely on your tools to be like a quote unquote, like I said, magic bullet. You know, so keeping those things in mind, you know, and I pretty much addressed Jordan's question, you know, about, you know, the low frequency elements dominating a mix. And his thing was like this, pumping and breathing. Now keep this in mind, and this is for Soup, and I'm gonna answer most of your questions because we got a lot coming in. Keep this in mind when setting your bus compressor. Tempo is king. You know, tempo meaning time signature of the music, you know. So the object is to get whatever reaction on the release to agree with the tempo. Okay? Which means every element that comes in, you don't want it to be counter to tempo. So if the beat is 1, 2, 3, 4, bop, 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 and your pressure do the bop, 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 and you don't want the compressor breathing on the end because it's against the beat. But if the compressor is on the beat or releasing it in time with the beat, it may breathe, but at least the breathing is in tempo. The release time is in tempo, and the breathing is in with tempo with the song. You know, So keep that in mind when setting it, because like I said, just arbitrarily, or if you're not certain with how to set it. Here's another example. They have the auto release thing on here. I tried it. It didn't work with the tempo of the song. So quite naturally, you have to go with a longer release time. I would have preferred if it had a bit of a longer release time of maybe 3 seconds, because that puts you in a more sweet spot, in terms of flexibility, but the release time is what's dictating how well the compressor works, because if it's holding it at a particular point, and at least if it's falling within the tempo of the song, you could make up gain to get everything to be equal. Hit the makeup gain. Just, if it feels like, okay, when I A-B it out, it drops in level, so I need to crank up the makeup gain to make up the difference. The compressor will sound, the mix will sound like it's bus compressed, but at least it's compressed to the point where the timing of the release is in step with the tempo of the song. Someone asked, also, would it be good for jazz? And my initial response was no. Excuse me. My initial response was no. But I take that back, only because maybe in a circumstance where it's less dynamic music, you just want to tame the peaks. All music has peaks and lows dynamically throughout the entire song. If not, then the person don't know how to write music. All music has a start, a finish, dynamic and climatic parts, and lows as well. So when you're listening to the mix on the whole, and you're going through this whole scope of everything that's taking place, then okay, I know the climax hits right here, so I have to make sure that my ratio of reduction is, when it hits the climatic part, it's not going to cause this massive dip in volume. Again, knowing how to set a compressor and knowing how to get it to sit throughout the entire mix so it sits well. So you say to yourself, well, okay, maybe I don't need a 4-to-1 ratio, because maybe the song is less dynamic. If it is, then you dial the ratio back. Maybe you don't need it. You just want to tame the peaks. Maybe the climax of the song, or the bridge, if you will, is less dynamic, and you just need to tame that peak where the person at that bridge hits the high note. The high note is coming. You just want to tame that peak, and that's all you want to do. The notion with a lot of people is that, I need to hear the compressor working. The response to that I say is no, you do not. You don't need. The compressor is a tool to control dynamics, period. You can use it as an effect, but the object of a compressor is to control dynamics, period. Think about compression as it's used in broadcast television. You can't squeeze crazy dynamics through them little television speakers. It's impossible. So you have to control it. And the best way to do that is with a compressor. Listen carefully to how the mix comes off of a television the next time you think about it. It doesn't sound full. It doesn't sound rich or robust unless you have this, unless it was done in 5.1 surround, if you will, which I don't think many commercials are. Anybody who works in that business can correct me. But by and large, it sounds a little contained and squeezed, and that's the job of a compressor. Let me get back to some questions real quick. I love to record a bus, nice color. Well, I need to okay, we answered those. Soup said, I thought the mix sounded incredible. Yeah, I mean, for what it was worth, for the demonstration, goal achieved, mission accomplished. Of course, there's always slight tweaking that you can do to a mix, and there's always that room for improvement. I don't think that, oh yeah, well, I did the job and the job is done. No, there's always a way to get it sweeter. So I'm not, when Jordan made that comment, it was like, yeah, I mean, maybe it could be tweaked a little bit more. Maybe I, at that point, I wish that I had a longer release time. The wish list goes on, but with the tools that you have, you got to make it work. And that was the overarching objective. What bus compressor would be the opposite of the SSL bus comp? I'm looking to add air and less aggression, like 80s crystal clear type mixes. Oh man. Okay. Listen, let's just address that really fast. Last live stream, I was saying to you guys that I was thinking about a console, and I've been visiting a few friends and talking to a few colleagues about going back. I had a console years ago, more than one, and I sold them all just to start mixing in the box. Now I'm getting back to the point where I think I want to go back to a console. I don't think I'll be going back to a large format console, but maybe something smaller in the summing fashion. Now, to answer your questions about, like 80s crystal clear type mixes, I'm gonna be honest with you. And this is coming from a person who, I don't want to get gross on a Sunday, but I started on a console. Last time I said pop your cherry, and that's not, cool. But anyway, I started on a console. And every time I sit behind a console, whether I'm visiting friend sessions today or I listen to mixes that I've done on a console, there's something that happens front and back, left and right. Now, the left and right part is easily achieved in a DAW. From my perspective, as a person who has sat behind a console many, many years of his life, the left and right perspective, it's always the front and back, the three-dimensional part, front and back, that I have a problem with, and that's not what I'm getting. So to answer your question, if you want that, you're going to have to probably invest in some sort of summing mixer so that you can break out your channels into the summing mixer and then treat from there. That would be my suggestion, is if you want that three-dimensionality, the summing mix will probably give you that. Don't just rely on any summing mixer. You're going to pay some money for a summing mixer. I'm going to tell you that right now. If you buy one of these little fly-by-night jobs, then, my mama used to always say it pays to shop Macy's. Sometimes when you buy cheap, you get cheap. But if you buy quality, you might start to suddenly see the difference. I would say if you're going to go the summing fashion, then definitely buy from a dealer that has a return policy. Because once you stick this thing in, if it's not giving you exactly what you're looking for, send it back. Send it back. I don't rely on all this hype that you see on YouTube. Oh yeah, my mixer sound bigger, fatter, punchier. Yeah, that was the selling lines. Your ears are the final analysis. Your client is the last one that has the final word, because they sign in the check. You know what I'm saying? So if at the end of the mix, the client's sitting there scratching his head like, I don't think so, then they sign in the check, man. They don't think so? You need to chuck that thing out the window or send it back. And don't be ashamed of asking for your money back. It's that simple, because you have to be happy with what you're hearing. Questions. The best explanation on BC bus compression. I usually just put it on auto. No, never, ever, ever put a bus compressor on auto if you can. And all bus compressors function the same way, whether you're using one by Summit Audio, TubeTech, all of them. The functionality of them are all the same. It doesn't make a difference brand-wise. But never set it and forget it, because that can be, especially if you're doing client work, because, that'll be a dangerous thing. You turn it into mixes and client says no. You go and you do a recall. The client says no. Then you're screwing yourself, because now it's like, I keep giving this dude instructions of no, and he keeps giving me the same no. That's because you're unfamiliar with making these microscopic adjustments. So for your stuff, yeah, you could put it on auto release. But if you're doing client work, no. Try and get it in the sweet spot. And if the client's mix is inhibiting you from getting in the sweet spot, then address that. you know, but never set and forget unless it's your music and that's what you want. Love your Circle of Tone, love your channel, man. I appreciate you, brother, for saying that, man. And I appreciate you for tuning in. Really, thanks. I appreciate that. Would I need a smaller SSL mixer like that desktop? I think that's pretty cute, but then again, you're kind of duplicating the same thing, because I think that SSL desktop mixer has the same functionality with the bus compressor. So, you know, you don't need both. In that case, you don't need that. Then just go with that as an option. But I think, yeah, you were saying about needing a reamp for it. Then yeah, that would probably be the better option, you know, for you to just go ahead and maybe get the SSL6, because that serves both purposes for you, you know. Great. Okay, so let me go back to another response that I got. Would this compressor be a great match for my 1073, for my Warm Audio 1073 preamp? I like everything from metal to jazz and R&B. The thing is that okay, I'm gonna put it to you this way. It's always good to have more than one sharp tool in the box. But if you can only buy one tool because for budgetary reasons, then you can't go wrong. In terms of being able to work on all genres, if that's the only tool you have, then you'll find a way to make it work. It's that simple, you know. And until such time, you know, you can get a little bit more specific. Now, what do I mean? I think it's best to have at least 3 bus compressors if you're doing any type of or want to do any type of mastering work. Why? Because like a Verimute is going to give you a sweet tone. I don't know. It's almost like euphoric, the sound that comes off of a Verimute compressor. I don't know why. The tubes probably have a lot to, well, most definitely have a lot to do with it. If you ever heard the Manley Verimute, it's like, oh my God, but you see the size of those blasted transformers in it, and then it's tube driven as well. So yes, a tube compressor, the Tube Tech, the Verimute, if you have the budget, you stick those in one category. The SSL bus comp is going to give you another flavor. But you know, the crew was smart, because what did they do? They added transformers. So they kind of addressed that issue. You know, I prefer to leave the transformers engaged. Someone can to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if the SSL X-Logic has transformers on the output. I doubt it. You know, that was one of the beefs that many people, when SSL consoles first came out, it's like, oh, it doesn't have that same, you know, fat feeling, you know, because, you know, and they were coming off of APIs in the 70s. Here comes SSL, I think, in about the 80s, 90-ish point in time. And coming from API and NEVE consoles, which have this huge sound. And then here comes this new jack called SSL, and they're introducing these transformerless consoles. It had a bit of a thinner sound, you know. So to be able, I'm saying that to say this, to be able to engage transformers on the bus comp, that's like having the best of both worlds. If you don't like the sound of the transformers as you're driving them harder, you take it out. It's that simple. But to have that as an option over their competitors, which are putting out similar type products, I think you have the best of both worlds there. So let's look at some more. Okay, that was 2 of them. Okay, any questions on settings? Whether it's the attack, the decay, the decay. I'm using a different type of term. The release time, with regards to ratios and what to listen for when you're talking about the ratios, as well as understanding what the high pass frequency is primarily used for and the best way to get the most from that. Any questions? Nope. Okay. Again, setting the threshold. I just want to address that really fast. When the first thing that you do before you engage the compressor itself, that will be this button right here. Before you actually engage the compressor, is to listen to your music in its entirety. You know, it's good if you have like the Clarity M so that you can see where you're peaking. So this way you have a before and an after response. Once you engage it, you can see the effect of the compressor from a dynamic or a loudness unit perspective. The one thing about the threshold that I did notice is in 4 dB increments, you know, so that's the one place where you can get it in the sweet spot, you know. So when you're listening to the mix overall, work here first from the threshold perspective, because that's going to pretty much tell you how much compression is applied. To understand that, you must look at this meter. You have to look at the meter to know how much gain reduction is happening. Because maybe you don't want, like I think in the 2 examples I had nearly 8 to 6 dB of gain reduction. Maybe you don't want that much. Maybe the client doesn't want that much. You know, that is easily remedied by finding this in the sweet spot, which is not stepped like all of the other, well, with the exception of the makeup gain, it's not stepped like everything else. So, you know, because it's variable, you like all of the other, well, with the exception of the makeup gain, it's not stepped like everything else. So, you know, because it's variable, you keep an eye on here and here, as well as how much gain reduction is showing up on this meter here. You know, you have to rely on those things in conjunction with an outboard meter if you have it. What level should I be going into this unit? -12? It depends. Again, what are you mastering for? You know, if you're mastering for streaming, oh, let me take that back. If you are the one solely responsible for mastering it and sending it off to like a CD baby for distribution, then -16 is a sweet spot, because what CD baby is going to do, they're going to take your track, hand it over to iTunes, who's going to re-encode it again. Okay, so if your music is going to be re-encoded, you need to give the next guy in the chain some latitude. You know, so if you're at -12, you're up there, man. You're approaching 0. So you want to come to a sweet spot, which is, I think, the iTunes, you know, thing preset on the Clarity was -16. So try and use that as your benchmark. You know, if you're going out from mastering to a mastering engineer, even come down maybe about a little bit lower. Try -20 if you know you're going out to a mastering house. And I would suggest, if you can, use a reputable mastering house that's in your locale, a guy that you can stop in and hand the tracks off to, have some level of dialogue with. If not, then make sure that they're in a place where you can Skype them or talk to them some kind of way so that you can have dialogue. You need to be in touch with your mastering engineer so that you can have a level of intelligent dialogue. He can tell you what he needs and vice versa. You know, just shopping demos, but I want the level to be competitive. We're talking about Loudness Wars now. I don't know. I have an opinion on that. If that's the case, if you're concerned about your music sounding competitive, my suggestion would be to listen to the tracks that are on iTunes, use those as your benchmark and your guide. you know, every step of the way, from equalization to compression to mixing, every step of the way, rely on those tracks, not Pookie and them down the block. Pookie and them is not your competition. The top guy at the top of iTunes reggae and dancehall chart, that's the guy. What's making his music work? And then, you know, use that as your benchmark and your guide. Don't try and reinvent the wheel here. And certainly don't carry the mix across the street to Pookie, because Pookie and you is on the same level. Go to the guy that's doing what you want to do. Mimic that. That's your guide. That's your benchmark. So from a competitive standpoint, always, that's why this unit is good. Think about it. We're talking about competition. What has Warm done? Directly competed with solid state logic. Directly. But they upped the ante. They engaged the transformer. They put a transformer in. That's the best of both worlds. You know what I mean? So you're starting out with a good tool that's going to give you the result you're looking for. Use that as your guide as to what a good mix is going to sound like for you, and from a professional perspective. Let's look. Interested in the high pass, taking away the booming, pumping, and breathing. That's why I don't like about that. Yeah. Listen. Okay, here. Let's talk about that. You said pumping and breathing. You could always use a frequency specific compressor for that, to limit just that area. Multiband compressor for the drums. Pay attention to that. Always start your mix from the bottom up. I don't know if you're mixing in these. This is for anyone that's doing hip hop, dance, or any bass heavy music. If you're doing bass heavy music, it is impossible to reference bass heavy music without a sub, as far as I'm concerned. And again, it goes back to my video. If you get a chance, you go and look at what I have to say about that when I sat in on mastering sessions. A good friend of mine, Carlton Batts, one of the top mastering engineers in the 90s. At Hit Factory, his mastering suite, literally, if you've been in a mastering studio, first, you know that good rooms are large, number one. And two, he had 9-foot speakers in there with about 8 of the 9 cabinets. 9-foot speakers, but 2 of the cabinets were 16-inch subs. 1, 2, 3, 4. He had 2 of those. When I tell you the sweetness of the bottom end, that he was able to capture because of being in a good environment, 1, and 2, being able to reference the bottom end well, can't beat it. You need a way to be able to pop that bottom end and out so you can hear the effect of it. If you're on small speakers that are 5 inches, or Auratones, I don't even trust 8. These are 8. I don't even trust those to give me a full picture as to what the bottom end sounds like. I have to pop the sub in. And I don't mix on these a lot, by the way. I don't. I mix on these most of the time because this is true. This is the mid-range. Followed by this, with the sub. Excuse me. So you're going to get a better picture as to whether or not your mixes will translate as long as you're in what's generally known as what everyone has. Everyone doesn't have huge 8-inch woofers in their house, so you need to be able to have a way to pop that bottom end alone. Only a subwoofer can do that for you. So if you're doing bass heavy music, you need that. For the bottom end, I use the Abbey Road headphone mix thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm just old. Maybe I'm just old, and I'm talking to a lot of young people. But let me tell you something about headphone. I don't know if you're mixing with headphones, but I have an opinion on that. That's for another thing. When referencing the bottom end, That's good, I guess. I've never used it, so I'm not going to call judgment on it. But my professional experience tells me, and from stepping into quite a few mastering houses and sitting in on mastering sessions for client work that I've done, and friends that are in the business right now, they'll tell you the only way to be able to listen to that bottom end is to have something that's going to give you a true reference. Then you're only going to get that from a 10-inch woofer. You need to be able to pop that sucker in and listen to it and see the effect of it, because maybe the bottom end is too flappy. You can't hear the flappiness and the flubbiness of that bass. You know how big bass waves are, man? They're wide and huge. I'll give you another example. A friend of mine who has finished his career mixing the Cosby Show, but did music, you know, that he was a television mixer. He did all of the Cosby episodes, but in the evening time, he was like my friend who writes for games. He evening time, he was like singer-songwriter type guy. And one day he built a room downtown at the Daily Planet, what I used to know as the Daily Planet building. And he's like, yeah, man, this is a great space for me to work in. And I have some more room tuning to do. You know, we need to put bass traps in. And I made a mistake and leaned on the lowest note on the keyboard that was there, which was a MIDI keyboard at the time, but it was hooked up to like a Rhodes. And I leaned on it, and the bass wave, it felt like there was an earthquake in the room, because the monitors were huge, Genelecs in the wall, huge. I leaned on it, and the rumble, bass waves are so big, and they're slow moving waves. They're easy to run into each other, to cause spinning waves. So how do you hear all that information if you got these little tiny things that they can't successfully reference that? You need a way to reference that. I'm not saying buy a Tannoy TS10 like I have. You could buy even the L cheapo ones from Best Buy. Those work. That's what everybody gonna be listening to music on anyway. You know, so to be able to reference the bass is key. You know, that you could stick that in the cheap one from Best Buy. You could stick that in the little headphone and just listen to the bass. If the bass is flubbing and flapping when you're listening to the bass alone, then you know you need to look at the multi-band compressor and do something there before you even entertain or relying on this high pass to do anything, because you want it to sound sweet. You don't want it to cause some unnecessary pumping and carrying on. If you could avoid that, that is, you know. So you don't have the money and for a dedicated professional subwoofer, go to Best Buy. It's just a bass wave. It's really no tonality that you have to concern yourself with, other than, is my 40 to 100 hertz working? Is that working? Not how does it sound. Is it working? Is it flubbing and flapping around like craziness, or does it sound tight? You know, I said that before. You know, you tune your ears to what a good bottom mix sounds like. 80s music is a good reference for that. You know, back when you had to mic up real drum kits, you know, things of that nature, where you could hear the knock, the fatness, you know, the girth that a kick drum is supposed to have, or an 808 for that matter. The roundness of the 808, boom, the roundness of that 808. How does it sound from a sub perspective? That these tiny speakers are not going to give you that. You need a subwoofer or something that's going to be able to successfully give you the good bottom end picture. And then you can see what the bass sounds like. This flapping around, that's a bass wave. It's huge. It's long. They're very long. They're not like, you know, high frequency and mid frequency waves. They're long. They take a long time to travel front and back. And if they crash into each other along the way, like in my friend's studio, long story, I didn't finish the story. I leaned on it. The window to his control room shook. I thought I was going to break the glass. I've never seen glass shake like that before. That's a testament to the power and the strength of the bottom end. So keeping that in mind, imagine how that would sound in a mix if it's uncontrolled. Crappy, you know? So try not to just simply rely on the high pass filter. It's going to do its job. You do your job on the mix side of things by applying, if it's an entire drum kit that's coming down 2 channels out, then you need to look at that drum stem. You need to put a multi-band compressor on there that's going to take care of the bottom end. Not so much compress the other elements of the kit. Take care of just the bottom end. Listen to it in conjunction with the result from the high pass filter so that you can get the best bang for your buck. Bring all the elements back into the mix. That's okay. Take the sub out, listen to it on small speakers, and you're going to be impressed because you took the time to treat the bottom. Treat the bottom. You got to treat the bottom. It's important. Every beef. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll do a video. I'll call up all my friends that were mastering engineers, and you'll hear professionals say the same thing. What's the biggest beef you get from a client? The bottom end. The bottom end. The bottom end sounds this way. It's always the bottom because bass waves are aggressive. And if you don't take the time in the recording process and the mixing process to tame that information, it's going to be like a bull in a china shop come time mix time. So don't let it, even if you're doing client work, let's just say you're in mastering, you don't let some client, after you listen to it, tell you how great the mix is. That's your job. If the bass sounds a little jacked up, say, you need to take this back and tighten up the bass, or give me the stems. Give me stem mixes in Pro Tools and I'll treat it on my end, multi-band wise, you know? But you got to treat, it's just like when you de-essing. If you don't control plosives and excessive S's in the process, it's no amount of tweaking with plugins is going to change that. Sorry, that should have been addressed early. So just like with should you mix with a subwoofer? When Keith Shockley called up Carlton that day, was like, yo, what's this click I'm hearing at the beginning? Played the mix back and he hear click, then DeBella Morgan comes in singing. I'm like, maybe the guy that did the master, that handed the master off to Carlton, maybe he didn't demagnetize the razor blade. We were using tape at the time. Maybe he didn't demagnetize that. You know, magnetization would cause a click or a pop. Maybe that it could be any number of things. But if you wanted him, Carlton, to fix that, you had to send him a brand new mix. Back in the days, recalls cost money. Pulling up that SSL console cost money. You know, reprinting a mix on tape, half-inch tape, cost money. Think record companies was up for that because you were too lazy to demagnetize a razor blade? Could cost you your job, but it's easier now. So much easier now. You know, so much easier now. Okay, here's some more questions. Under 50, I just want to EQ everything under 50 or something, but that's probably 50 hertz. Again, let your ears, you know, we can't be so frequency specific when you're talking about the bottom end because you got a lot of elements. You still have lower mids to think about, which comes up in about the 350 range. So as you're turning this dial, the top end is 100. I got old eyes. Give me a minute. 185 hertz, which is approaching 200. You can't get too crazy as you're approaching the lower mids because now maybe you start to affect elements like the snare drum, which needs that girth. You know, so you got to pretty much stay judicious depending on the genre. You know, with like I was at 125 for those two mixes. You know, so you got to stay within that range. I think that's a safe place to be. But if you start getting down at the bottom, towards the bottom where it's like the sub bass, I think you're kind of treading on some very dangerous water unless you have a compressor on the kick alone that you know is so contained, on the mix that once it hits here, it's going to be a non-event, non-issue. So be very careful with that. Question is, I guess a decent summing mixer and a sub is what I'm looking for, and not a bus comp at this point. It depends. If you could get the best of both worlds, if that's what you need, then I would say, yeah, the SSL6, because you got to think this is $700. That is 14. You got the best of both worlds right there. Unless you want to use a less inexpensive outboard Mackie mixer as an option. You have to let your budget and your ears, dictate, the outcome of your purchasing. If you're doing client work, you got to reach for the stars. It's, don't give your client anything that is substandard. Like if you go out and you buy a Mackie mixer tomorrow, if you're doing client work, that's not the best that that you could possibly sonically give a client. So try to stay away. I would rather you just have a simple solution that is quality, as opposed to, okay, I'll just bastardize one part of the chain. Here's another option. You could always get a 2-channel warm WA73 to reamp. Those are not priced too high, to reamp what you have coming out of your DAW, and then go back into the bus comp, returning it back to the DAW. So those are options, but try to give your sonic best to when you're doing client work. That's just my opinion. I don't rely on plugins so much, but I know what will give someone a little bit of a smile on their face, because I came from a point in time where you had to work hard to get mixes, man. When I first started, there was no recall. You had a big piece of tape on the desk and you had marks, and it would take maybe several people to make sure they turned the reverb up at a particular time. Sometimes you hit, sometimes you missed. You know what I mean? So you would have to go through this whole process over and over and over. That's why sessions used to last all night long, if you know what I mean, because you had to get it right, especially if you know what's going out for client purposes. Clients don't want subpar. No. I got a whole other couple of videos on how to run a business. You don't screw your clients, man. That's your bread and butter. They keep the lights on. If you know you can only give them X, give them X. That's the best. That's a whole other topic. Got videos on that on the channel as well. I want more depth and clarity between channels. I've tried everything except a summing mixer. Depth and clarity. It gets down to tell me the system that you're using, and I'll be able to tell you what you're lacking and what would probably help. Right now, I've been with Pro Tools since version number 2. That tells you how old I am. Okay. And it's up to whatever it is right now. I spent a fortune on an HD system years ago. To me, as long as you're handing off a 96K or greater mix for streaming, you have more than enough. Okay. Now, technology in terms of converters has come a long way in this time. We all know that. So the playing field in terms of quality has somewhat been leveled. Now you have to ask yourself, where do you want to go? You know what I mean? Because I'm telling you, with these UA interfaces now, and now with Dante interfaces as well as the Apogee stuff, it's killing. They no longer reign supreme. Avid no longer reigns supreme. You know, if I was starting out today, I would be comfortable with a UA system and Logic. Period. Why? Because the quality has been leveled. It's everything is everything now. Now on the back end, the question is, the game changer is, how do you process everything coming out? That's the game changer. Because if everyone's chain is the same, based on everyone using the same plugins, you ain't no different from Pookie and them down the block, because Pookie and them got the same system. You got the same system, the same plugins, blah, 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 blah. But what is making your sound different? Are you using this unit for that purpose? Because I noticed you and Pookie got the same thing, but yours sounds so much different. Yours sounds so much different because you're running it through this system. Maybe he don't got that, you know. So let's. I'm using mono waves preamp to track synth. Okay, I mix with SSL plugins and master. Oh man, hey, I got an opinion about ozone. I don't know, man. You know, I know there's a lot of hype around it. I've used it before, but again, I got an opinion about that. Maybe I'll save it for another video. I'll tell you about something that's better than ozone, meaning your ears to start out with. There's no, for me, I don't think, after having seen most of it, I don't think there's one single magic bullet that can fix everything. And that's how a lot of these plugin manufacturers sell plugins. They think this is the one stop. Like, I'll give you an example. I saw a video. 3 steps to mastering your music in under 3 minutes. God forgive me. That's a damn lie. Ain't no way you can master your music in 3 minutes. Period. Now, I am no mastering engineer, but I know platinum producing mastering engineers that are on speed dial. I will call them right now and ask Carlton. Carlton, have you ever mastered Herb Powers? Have you ever mastered Randy Mahan? Have you ever mastered in under 3 minutes? They will all tell you no. 1 work at Sony, 2 were at Hit Factory. They will all tell you never happened. Never happened. Because they know if you're releasing, and this is for those of you that want to release music on iTunes. I'm going to have to do another video because now I'm getting off into another area. There is a particular way you need to deliver stuff to iTunes. Ozone is not going to fix that. You may get it great and be, oh, yo, this is banging. Yeah, the mix is happening. Then you get it over to iTunes or the distributor, CD Baby, and then when you hear it on iTunes as a stream, you're like, yo, that ain't the mix. I've had that happen. That ain't the mix. I've seen clients that have done that. That's not the mix that I sent out. Why? Because you didn't monitor every step of the way, all the way down to your final distribution point. iTunes has a spec. They have a benchmark. They have requirements that you must follow. If you breach them, then your mix is going to sound like something other than what you had in the studio. It's impossible to avoid. So these single plugins that can fix, stick this on your 2 bus and God will descend from heaven. No, sorry, not going to happen. Not going to happen. That's not true. You're going to have to use your ears. You're going to have to use some metering. You're going to have to A/B it on several sets of speak just to make sure. They say an ounce of prevention is a pound of, well, you know that when the stuff gets to the streaming service, it's going to sound a particular way. You have to make sure that you take care of it here. That's your job. And if clients are paying you, it's your job. It's not your job to go and buy one plugin and be like, Ozone's going to fix that. Just no more than this will fix every problem you have. No more than that. No more than that. You got to know that your ears are telling you, okay, well, maybe I need less compression at this point, just to make it sit better or be more competitive, as we were talking about competition. competitive mixes. Go to iTunes, listen to whatever is at the top of their charts for your genre. Match that. That's your benchmark. I'm not saying ozone is bad, so please don't misunderstand me. I'm saying is that it's not an end all be all. And that's what we have to get away from as mixers, as engineers, as musicians and producers. Get away from that. I got the latest wave plugin. Good for you. That's great. Will it make your mixes sound better? Nope. You know, not necessarily. You have to know how to use your tools, period. You know, do you think the new warm audio bus comp will be a good choice for someone who cannot own an SSL bus compressor? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, sirree, Bob. For all of the reasons that I listed in the previous live video. You can't go wrong, man. You can't go wrong. And you know what's funny? You know, the people that hate on other folk for doing things a particular way. Like I was talking with Bryce at AES, and he was like, he gets hatred on the regular via email when people see him like, your stuff is whack. The underhandedness that he experiences in the business because he's introducing these products. He must be, plucking somebody's nerve because he's a smart young man. From two standpoints, he knows good sound, one, and two, he knows he has his finger on the pulse of the business right now. He knows that most guys in simple studio setups can't afford to go out and buy a SSL X-Logic compressor. So what do I do? Oh, I get it. I reverse engineer it. I go out and I buy the componentry in bulk. It's called economies of scale. He understands business. They hate him for that reason because he's smart. I ain't hating on nobody like that. And then he turns around and gives it to the consumer who are now, and I want someone to chime in on the girl who won all the Grammys from the bedroom studio. I don't follow pop music like that. These people are cranking out music from their bedrooms, from garages, quality stuff. You don't think that's plucking pros' nerves somewhere? People who are crafting these things and they're charging the public an inordinate, crazy amount of course, that's angering people. The fools are the critics, because you're a fool if you think that $3,000 with the same set of componentry is going to give you a better sound. That's just craziness. They use test equipment, and oscilloscope is going to render the final verdict as to what is the better quality product. You don't think that this man, before he put this product out on the market, he sat in a lab with somebody and looked at all this tests to make sure that he was benchmarking just as good as SSL? Don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself. Because trust me, he did. I wasn't there, but I know he did because I know how equipment manufacturers make equipment. That's all manufacturers. If you want to compete and compete well, you have to have a benchmark. Like we were talking about music, being competitive, your competitive mixes. What are you benchmarking your music against? It has to be benchmarked against something. So if your genre, the top guy is whomever, you need to be consuming what that man is doing. Every little detail. I have a friend of mine. We toured a long time ago with a very well-known group. I'm not going to call his name, but he is like the first call musician. He wasn't that way when we first met, but he's the first call musician in New York. And I used to study his intentness. You ever saw someone, he's like laser focused on every little detail. So it's no wonder he's a first call musician in New York. And I picked up on that. Now, his talent is one thing. Of course, he's talented, but the degree of dedication and focus on the detail, that's what's important. That's what separates the men from the boys. That's what separated this girl who won all them Grammys from everybody else. You think she had time to be, I don't want to, Can we not do the overdub again? No. You know, you got to focus on the detail. Bryce was focused on the detail. Okay, we got most of the design done. How do we take it up? And oh, let's put transformers on the back. Yeah, let's try that. They tried it. Boom, sounded great. Oh, snap. Are we going to be the first ones in the market with that type of design? Yep. $700. Yeah, you're going to get hatred, but $700. He is angering people like crazy. You think SSL is happy with this man right now? No. He cutting into their market share. You think Heritage Audio is happy with him right now? No. He's cutting into their market share. But what Heritage has done is something totally different. They focused on the NEVE perspective. Smart. He's focused on the SSL perspective. Smart. You know? So everybody who's riding the middle, Drummer, and all the other players in the market right now have to figure, how do we straddle the best of both worlds so that we could take from their market share? It's about business, you know, and he's got a good business sense. He has an excellent technical sense, and he has his finger on the pulse of the industry right now. People are turning out records from their bedroom. The days of big studios, as well as big budgets from record companies, are gone. Sorry. So what did he do? He tapped into that market. You guys want professional? Guess what? I am making a 1073. That's what he said. And people are like, oh, I can't afford a $4,000 1072 or 1081, 5,000. Maybe I could afford his. And then when they stack it side by side, it's, oh, snap, what did he do? He reverse engineered what the pros were doing at NEVE. Gave you the same package, less price. By economies of scaling it, by buying all of the componentry in bulk. The first thing I did when I got not this unit, but the WA73s, I opened it up because the proof is in the pudding. You know what I'm saying, as they said. And if you black, you know about like macaroni and cheese. You know you don't just eat everybody macaroni and cheese because it got to be like your mama's mac and cheese. Right? You know what your mother put in it. Greetings from Devon. My brother, how are you? I'm glad you tuned in. I had a chance to listen to his mixes of soup. You're laughing at the mac and cheese analogy, right? You know that. You know that. You don't eat everybody mac and cheese, brother. You know? So it's the same thing with that. So you open it up, and you know good and well. If you go to, I'm gonna talk to you, Gurn, in a minute. But you know good and well. You go to Thanksgiving at Pookie and them house, right? And they serve the mac and cheese, and you pull the middle open, and it look a little watery. You're gonna be like, thank you very much. Nah, I'll pass. It's quite all right. But if you open up a unit, in this case, we took back to audio, and you see, look at the potentiometers they use, the switching, the componentry, the capacitors, the resistors. I'm a nerd like that because I've had to understand what a quality resistor, metal film resistors, 1% unrated, are quality resistors. Resistors are not expensive components. If you buy them in bulk, they turn to like a penny a piece. A penny. So what, you overbuy 100,000 resistors? You can reuse them on other items. He's smart. This man is a genius, if you will. So we need to shed the mindset of because it says warm audio and not NEVE. I said to you before, everybody's like, oh, well, show. I stuck it back in the rack. It was in the box on the shelf. Why? Because it wasn't my daily driver. This was. It's the same thing. Sonically equivalent. What does it get back down to? Whether or not you used an actual NEVE on a particular song? No. The song is either making it or it's not working. You know? This girl that won all them Grammys, she probably had a little 2-channel interface in her bedroom. Maybe. I don't know the details. Someone could chime in and let me know. But She strummed along on her guitar. Her songs were killing. She collects 9,000 Grammys, goes home. Guess what? Now that she done made all this money, she gonna build the world-class studio. To whom much is given, much is required. She had talent. She had a little interface. She took it to the next level. Now she got all this money. She's gonna build better. You do better with what you have. If all you have is this for $700, squeeze it until you get the best possible sound. Learn it so that you can get the best possible sound. I had this little DBX unit for the longest because it was what I was familiar with. This thing is like about 37 or 38 years old. You know, I understood how to get a good vocal sound out of it. This is literally a set and forget, but I understood my equipment so that I could get the maximum benefit. So here this man comes along and introduces great stuff like this, like these WA-73s. Let the critics be the critics. Go and turn out world-class music. Like I said before, Dave Pensado endorses him. Sylvia Massey endorses him. They will not put their name on anything that they feel is substandard. I know that for a fact. Not because I know them personally, which I do not. It's just that I know that if you're going to tie your reputation to something, you know, you are the company that you keep. So if she's great, then she wants greatness. Dave Pensado is great. He wants greatness. He will not endorse anything that's less than that. So let's let's answer some more questions. It's always a couple of French guys to follow you. Oh, my brothers. When I get to France at some point in the near future, we will connect. We will connect. Somebody said, yeah, about the, oh yeah, don't put no raisins in the potato salad. Again, it's a black thing, folks. You got to understand, when black folks and they soul food, you know, you putting the potatoes in the raisin. Oh, no, I mean, raisins in the potato salad. You can't do that. Okay. Even if NEVE preamps nowadays, you can't sound like. Yeah, that's true. About preamps of yesterday and today. True. You know, listen. Okay, let's just deal with it from a componentry standpoint. You can buy a NEVE 88 console right now, but you notice that when people buy these consoles, they say it has to be recapped. They have capacitors in them. Capacitors are like batteries. If you look at a capacitor, it's shaped like a battery. It retains a charge. Capacitors go bad over time, period. When you test it with a piece of test equipment, it's going to give you its rated reading on spot on, or it's not. If it's not giving you its rated reading spot on, then it has to be replaced. You got to desolder it from the board, resolder new caps in. So quite naturally, when people are running around, say, okay, well, we're going to have this showdown, Warm Audio versus NEVE versus Heritage. Take Heritage out of the equation because they're new jacks like Warm. Put NEVE and a classic NEVE on the table. It's not going to sound the same. The capacitors are old. You know, it's going to have a different tone because, you know, maybe certain frequencies require certain levels of voltage that a capacitor needs to give at a given point in time. So if that capacitor is aging, it's going to naturally be weaker. It's just like the laws of nature. You know, as we get older, we fail in certain areas of our health. Same thing with a capacitor. It's older. Them need, you know, 1073s from back in the day. Why do you see a lot of people, when they buy classic NEVE boards, pop out and put the BAEs in? The BAE is a modern take on a 1073. You know, you're going to get a contemporary take with the same hand-wired principle that NEVE offered. They were handcrafted, which is going to give you a different tone, by the way. You know, you know, now they use a different design technology that is probably part hand wiring, but a lot of it's laid out on PCB boards. It's a different design type. It's going to maybe have a difference in tone here and there, but is it lower quality? The answer to that is no. The answer to that is an emphatic no. Why? Because of what's inside. Can you use crap capacitors? Sure. Can you use crap resistors that cost less than a penny when you buy them in bulk? Absolutely. You know, that is not unheard of. But what is crap going to yield? Crap in is going to yield crap out. So when your client looks at you and say, what in the world did you what happened to my music? And you know you mixed it through, you know, low quality mixing board number 1, you can't be like, oh, fronting like nothing happened. What do you mean? You know what happened. You mixed it through low quality mixing unit number 1. Be truthful. But think about the pros that are endorsing this company. That's what I'm saying. Whatever is going into a unit, you got to know that what's going into the unit, you know, and these using quality componentry, you know, quality throughout, you know, these capacitors that he's using, man, and the resistors and cinematic transformers, you know, I forgot who I was talking to. They said that they couldn't get the license. They wanted to put out a particular piece, and they went to Carnhill for a particular license, and they couldn't get the license from Carnhill because I don't think Carnhill believed in their company. Carnhill is a top transformer maker. You think they're gonna tie their brand to Pookie and them? No, they're not. Because they know if they put it out there and then you slap a Carnhill name on it and it's substandard sounding, people gonna be like, well, you know, I heard Pookie and them's preamp that has Carnhills in it and didn't sound that great. Carnhill knows they have to protect their name. You think Carnhill would have given the license to Bryce and them to release a 1073 clone if they didn't know it was top notch? Doubt it. Doubt it. So you got to understand the business from a global perspective as opposed to this little narrow perspective like, oh, you know, well, it doesn't say NEVE, so it just must not be good, because that is far from the truth. This message is helpful. Okay. I prefer buying clone. That will cost half the price. Yeah, but think about it. Think about how these units will age and how sweet they'll sound as they're getting broken in. It's like the engine on a Ferrari. You know, when you first take it out the lot, it's not going to perform as well as when it's, you know, broken in. You're going to get the best performance out of it when it's, you know, broken in. So once these capacitors and the resistors and everything, all the componentry is burned in to a point, you're going to get an even sweeter tone out of it. You know, I love your channel to have small bite-sized information videos, fixing misconceptions, kind of like the answers you are giving here in this live stream. That's true. I'm a bit long-winded, you know, and I try to keep my videos succinct. Some like my format. Some, you know, you got to see some of the messages I get from people. You know, I get some hatred. Some people I've had to block because they become downright aggressive. You know, not a punk. You know, I'm Harlem born, Harlem bred, you know, so you don't want to mess with the Henrys, you know. So, you know, I don't get into this debate back and forth because I try to present my perspective based on my own experiences. No, I do not have a wall of platinum records. No, I do not have a modicum of, I don't even have 1 Grammy. But what I do have, I've dedicated my life and my career to the guys in the middle. And I've seen so many people on their way up that I know nowadays that are professionals. I know quite a few folk that I met when they were just starting out that are top in the business right now, you know, and I just had to focus on the underdog, you know. I love seeing these people along the way, and I applaud what they've done in the business, and I applaud what they've achieved, you know. So, you know, my focus has never been to be the race to the guy at the top, because, you know, my mentor a long time ago, he reminded me of the pyramid principle. When you look at a pyramid, it's very narrow at the top. There's very little room for everybody at the top. But where is most of the people? Right here in the middle. You focus on giving the guy in the middle the best, especially if they're talented. You know, you give them the best that you can give them. Then when they're on the top, they're going to reach back and remember, you know, it was so-and-so. You know, I've had that said about me from several people. You know, I remember when, and I can say the same thing about you. You're on top. Like I was talking about my friend who was a first call musician now. You know, I remember when he was just getting started in New York, looking for gigs, taking any gig that could come around, you know, and I applaud his success. Some people are jealous. I applaud his success because this is my belief. If anybody in this live stream right now makes it big, I mean, who gabs the money, I feel like I played a part in that by virtue of our discussion today. You know, so, you know, you're engaged in a marathon. You're not engaged in a sprint. The music business is not a sprint because for those who have treated it like a sprint, they are here today and gone tomorrow. You know, when you think about it on the whole. So, yeah, that's my spiel about the business. My wife just chimed in. She's being nosy. Stop being nosy, baby. Anyway, in your opinion, what should you be listening for when differentiated from the sound of cinematic transfer versus Carnhill? Cinemax and their I think this guy Ed Anderson, he's a new jack making transformers nowadays in the business. The Cinemax and the Ed Anderson clones of the Cinemax have much cleaner API-like sound. You have to love the API sound. If you need good references on that, I would say most of the early Stevie Wonder records were made on APIs. You know, with NEVEs always have a lot of girth. You want to hear a NEVE at work? Listen to a lot of Al Schmidt's mixes, and he's one that did that. That you know, I've had an opportunity to have a brief discussion with once in my life. That says outside of the box, man. He said he tried in the box, but he said he just likes the sound coming off the console, and it has to be the design of the way the NEVE sound. I mean, if you've ever heard a classic NEVE console, you'll know what I'm talking about. It just has this sweet tone. It just, you know, and it's by virtue of the design. You know, I'm not saying API is better than NEVE, is better than SSL. They all have their character. They're like three brothers in a family. Everybody's character is different. You know, you may gravitate more towards one than the other. It's a matter of personal taste, based on genre, based on, you know, what you want your end result to sound like. You know, so it's a matter of that. You know, what you want your result to sound like. You know, but the Cinemax have much more cleaner sound, and I do like the way they sound. I know they have a little bit of a sweet sound, but clean but sweet, coming out of the bus comp. You know, so that was an impressive addition, if you will, to the bus compressor to be able to have that. This remind me, I love the New Jack Swing era. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My friend Ruben Singleton, concurrent. If you go to Ruben, he's someone else that I worked with a lot extensively. He has a current single out that's blowing up Spotify right now. He's crossed the 100,000 stream Rubicon. Ruben Singleton is down with Teddy Riley's new production outfit. Check out that new cut by Ruben Singleton. Congratulations. Killing. Teddy's stuff is killing. The new stuff, killing. You know? So yeah, man, the New Jack stuff is, I mean, the new stuff that Teddy is doing is eclipsing the New Jack Swing thing. And he was the father of New Jack. So yeah, man. Ha. Thank you. I'll check it out. Yes, please do. Ruben Singleton, Rubin Singleton. You'll probably show up as just Singleton because that's his stage name. Or go to YouTube and check out his Vivo. Congratulations, you took a player off the market. Killing song. Killing. Yeah, Ruru is killing it, man. So yeah, that's some new stuff that Teddy Riley is doing with his new production crew. You know, and again, he's an older guy who's now reintroducing new music. Can't beat that a guy that has a good, well-tuned ear to what the public wants. So that's some new stuff by Ruben Singleton. Congratulations. You know, and he's doing very well right now on Spotify. He's crossed the 100,000. I don't know if he's had the same amount of with the video, which is on YouTube. So if you get a chance, check him out on YouTube. Ruben, Rubin Singleton, and you'll see. Congratulations is the name of the cut. But he was someone that I worked with a lot on his way up. I've done about 3 singles with Ruben, you know, and he was the guy that was in the middle, but you know, he approaching the top, you know. So, you know, it gets back to my original point about using the tools that you have, you know, to give the person the best of both worlds, you know. Okay. Oh, snap. I think you'll check it out. Okay. Yeah, please do that. Gerna, I liked the U67 sound. Are you talking about the tell me what you're referencing, because okay, if you're talking about the mic that was used, or you just like the sound of the U67. And here's another question for New Jack: would warm audio SSL6 be great? I know when okay, perfect example. Michael Jackson's not last record. Teddy Riley worked on, and here's a good story for you. Another good story. Right before, this is about the late 90s. My friend Carlton, we were about to get together for lunch or something like that, and I was going to meet him. He worked at the Hit Factory, and his thing was like, "Oh, you can't come upstairs today." I'm like, "Why not?" Michael got the whole building locked out for the Dangerous record. Okay, no problem. So if you want to know whether or not, you know, an SSL versus NEVE sound, SSL and NEVE are all over the Dangerous record. I'm not certain. I could almost be certain though that most of that Teddy did was done in the NEVE room. And I think at the time they had a 88 series console in the NEVE room at the Hit Factory. So if you want to hear the sound of a fat NEVE at work, then listen to the Dangerous record. All the Teddy Riley cuts, which were done here in New York at the Hit Factory primarily, and maybe some was done at, I think Teddy had an outfit out in Ohio at the time. You know, maybe he did pre-production there, but I know the tracks wound up at the Hit Factory in New York. You know, because we were supposed to get together, and he's like, "You can't come in." He's like, "I can't even come out of the room to go to the bathroom if Michael was walking through the building." It was like that. He wanted no one to look at him. No one could come out of their rooms. It was that type of situation with Michael Jackson, and he locked out the entire studio. All the rooms in the Hit Factory were locked out for the Dangerous record when Teddy Riley was working on it. So there's a story for you. Yes. Al Schmidt liked the U67. Let's talk about using that particular mic with a warm audio product. I think someone had asked me what was the vocal chain of Dion's music with this last video that I put out. And it was a U87 into an Avalon 737 preamp. Question: can you get the same level of quality with a warm audio product? Maybe if you're intent on dialing it in perfectly. I think it's a combination of having the right preamp. Warm has provided that. I even broke down, I have a friend of mine. I don't own the actual U87, but I even broke down at some point and bought, the Warm Audio's version WA87 because I wanted to hear what it sounded like. It's a decent mic. I've used it on a few sessions as of late. Can you get into the ballpark of quality with these products? Yes. Will it sound like a U67? No. If you've used a U87 or 67 or 47, they have a very distinct sound because the design sense from Warm's perspective is a little bit different. Can you tweak it to get it to shape it to the point where it sounds that way? Maybe. It'll take a little bit of effort. But for the purist that like a particular brand, I say reach for that brand. Period. This way it eliminates the gray area in your mind every time you use it. Oh, does it really sound like a U87? A U87 sounds like a U87. Period. A U67 sounds like a U67. Period. The Germans have a way of designing their microphones. Warm has a way of designing their microphones. You want the real thing? Go for the real thing. Ain't nothing like the real thing. That's another thing. Anyway, so Dangerous, I think you mean. Yes, the Dangerous album. What did I say? I thought I said Dangerous. Would you explain why the NEVE sound is all over Pharrell's records, fat and full? All right. Pharrell, there's someone that I don't know Pharrell personally, no, but I am familiar with someone here in New York, very close to him, that hired him a lot to do a lot of Jay-Z's earlier music. Okay. So what was all over New York at the time? I think with hip hop, you really kind of like probably need a NEVE just because it's bass driven, it's very bass heavy. If you tweak the sound on a SSL, NEVE uses inductance based EQ, an inductor on their EQs, and SSL doesn't. So quite naturally, the sound is going to be a little bit more harsh on the ears with an SSL than a NEVE. And when it comes to genre like hip hop, like I was listening to a lot of earlier this week, just going through a lot of the earlier Rockefeller Records mixes when I knew that they were using certain studios here in New York. And I don't know, there's something that's missing in current hip hop that I'm hearing a lot in Jay-Z's earlier music, that's just not sonically there, and Jay has an incredible flow, and he's very musical in the way he came across. The equipment behind him just enhanced that, including Brush Your Shoulder Off, Timbaland's production. I don't know how it was mixed. I would have to go to the liner notes to see where they were. I do know that they use chunking a lot, and chunking has that huge. I think they had a NEVE room in the back, and in the front was an SSL. So it's debatable as to how that sound was achieved, but I could tell you definitely that there's a width that you get from a NEVE console that you just don't get from SSL. And that's not to say SSL is bad. It's a taste that you have to like for a particular genre. For instance, I mentioned before the first time I ever heard of SSL was with Dana Reed, and he was doing demos for the label Glorious at the time. And the first time I ever heard of SSL was at Unique, sitting in on those sessions with Dana. And it just has a very clear, transparent sound. Clear and transparent. Sometimes you like that. This is clear and transparent. The transformers are going to, if you saturate them, it's going to give you a different tone and sound. Expect that. But if you want NEVE, that saturation of those transformers, then that's the direction you have to go in. You have to know what you want tone-wise. That's what's of utmost importance. I have a pair of Telefunken Copperheads. Yes, Another good product to pair with the warm audio stuff. Those Telefunkins, and that's a topic for another video. But that's a perfect match for the warm audio stuff because of the design, the way the mic is designed, to rival, and they've come extremely close to the older versions of their microphones, man. It's uncanny. The clarity, again, that's like the first time I ever heard a Telefunken microphone. The detail, the low noise floor, those huge giant capsules they use. Pair that with a good preamp and a good back end, you can't go wrong. So let's go up. In your opinion, what should be the difference? In your opinion, what should you be listening for with differentiating the sound of the Carnhills versus Cinemax? Like I think I glossed over that, but now I'm talking in detail. Carnhill's always going to give you that width. If you want to know what it really sounds like, you saturate it and you'll hear it. Let's just say, for instance, if you got the warm WA73, if you saturate it, like if you take a frequency or an electric guitar and you saturate it, which means you drive it hard, it's going to give you a harmonic presence that you may like or you may not. Depends on the genre of music, Whereas I think I've never saturated either, but I know that the characters of Transformers really comes out when you saturate them, just like tubes. Cheap tubes may crap out if you put too much information in it, and as better ones might not. So whenever you saturate something, what you get out of it is what, the sound, the tone, that comes out of a NEVE when you drive it hard. Any further questions? I'm surprised. Oh, here's one. I asked the question. Okay, what question was that? This is about. Do you think the bus con would be a good choice? Someone says they asked the question whether or not it would be a good choice because they bought the EQP1 from Warm and was surprised by this unit. Well, you got to buy according to your taste. That's what makes the difference between Carnhills and Cinemax great, and the fact that Warm is brought both of these to the market is the fact that you now have a choice that's not breaking the bank. And having choices, is a good thing. Think about it. Does a carpenter ever show up to your house with one tool in his toolbox? No. He's not a carpenter. He cannot shape and do his work in a very crafted way if he's not given the opportunity to properly do that with the tools that he's afforded. You're the same way. You're a craftsman. Your tools help shape the sound. If you have a choice between a Carnhill output or a Cinemag output, you're giving your client, your music, other options. It's that simple, So you have to know what you like, what you're going to reach for first, what the client likes, and what the client prefers. More options never hurt anyone. You know what I mean? But the good thing is that if you don't like something and you buy it, you could always send it back. If it doesn't serve your purpose to the letter, you could always send it back. Okay, I have more questions. Let's go down, scroll. What would happen with no compression at all? And is that possible for a good mix? Every record you hear has some measure of bus compression on it, period. Whether it's little or a lot. I'll deal with it from a analog tape perspective. Analog tape had maybe +3. You could peak at +3. It wouldn't be a problem. You started peaking at +6 and greater. If you didn't use Ampex, I think it was 456, the +9 version of it, If you didn't bias your machines to accept tape that could hit levels of +9, you had distortion problems. The only way you could get all that information down to a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch master was to limit. You had to. You know what I mean? So to answer your question, is it possible? If you're doing singer-songwriter, light, that doesn't have a high dynamic, you know, bit of information for the duration of the song, yeah, you could probably get away with it. You could get away with probably just hand writing, or with in Pro Tools, just write the automation so that when they get at those peaky points, you could drop the dynamics a bit without compression. That's possible because the computer reacts quickly. But if you have highly dynamic music, R&B, hip hop, dance hall, hard guitar driven rock, no, you need some sort of limiting ability, whether it's plug-in or in this case, outboard. It's every record, has to go through some level of limiting. Next question. Those who have the telephone can have a mid-range Magic. I'm using that for drum rooms. Yes, see, it like using a quality microphone and this unit to compress like drum room mics, I would imagine would give you a sweet result. It would definitely give you a sweet result to be able to capture a good mid-range perspective and at the same time have a decent compressor to give it some character and engaging the transformers on the back end. Absolutely, you will get a very, very, good mix, crushed mix perspective if you're using it, and bouncing it back into the session and in a parallel compression situation where you want to dial in just a sweet amount, on a bus, if you will, within Pro Tools, that is. So like I said, you're getting the best of both worlds with this thing. I wonder how much music today was live drums and issues and how much is samples and sound design. I think it depends if you're using well, today's music is probably, it depends on genre. I do know that there's a fatness. I'm going to go back to the Jay-Z example, that when Timbaland was, who endorses now doing stuff totally in the computer. Back in the day, it was like the MPC that a lot of guys would drag to the studio, or for those of you who are my age and older, over 40, that is, you remember the drumulator, the EMU drumulator, that big giant, this thing was like massive, a big hunk of metal that had all these outputs, that you would use, so that just gave you a different sound altogether, but how much of it is real instruments versus samples? The samples have come a long way, but for my ear, it just still doesn't give me that front and back, that three-dimension feel that I'm used to. That's just my ear. That's just the way my ears are tuned and have been tuned through the years to hear music from that perspective. There's another question. So would you say you'd have the best of both worlds, printing with the WA273, and the bus comp, SSL and NEVE transformer sound, bus compression, and awesome preamps? Yes. Because the one thing that you can do, you can run, again, like I said, you could run the Cinemax hard and take this out, or vice versa. Engage this and drive the Cinemax on the output less. It's tone, it's flavor, it's what you're giving your ears and your client, and then it gets down to the end, whatever the client wants, So next question. I've got an idea. I'll be trying stereo bus comp later this year. Warm Audio's on fire right now. Yes. Yep. Yes, they are. As items come off patent, I could see them, making a whole lot more people angry, if you will, because he's a smart man. You can't hate on somebody who's bright. Bryce is bright. You know what I mean? You can't hate on folk. And I want to see young guys, be afforded what I couldn't afford, man. I can't afford couldn't afford no NEVE console. When I first started, my studio was started out as a little 4-track Porter studio. I graduated from that to an Alesis 1622 board. I graduated from that and I bought an Allen and Heath. I graduated from the Allen and Heath into that 32 channel Tascam. I shed the Tascam for in the box mixing. Now I'm ready to go back. You know what I mean? So you got young guys coming up now. You're starting out at such a high quality level on so many levels, from a interface standpoint, computer, the interface that you're using, the digital audio conversion in the interfaces, the UA stuff that's out, the warm stuff that's out. You guys are stepping in on the mountaintop. You're walking into the business right on the mountaintop. And to me, that's the best of both worlds. Back in the day when I was a kid, -10 was the demo level. +4 was what all the pros used. Now everything is +4, which means you're stepping into a sonic footprint that was reserved once upon a time for the professional. You're coming in at that level. God bless you. I'm looking forward to seeing more of these young musicians that are coming out winning Grammys because of people like Bryce. Don't hate on the guy, man. I mean, he's putting out good stuff. And with me, it's like, what tools are you using? I don't care if it could be. Listen, I got preamps by this guy in Tennessee. It's an unknown guy. He builds preamps. His name is Ruel Oquindo, if I'm mispronouncing his name. The company is Fivefish Audio. He makes preamps out of his garage. He uses quality componentry throughout. He's happy doing that. They sound great. You can check it out at fivefishstudios.com and see everything that he offers. If it sounds great and it's working, it sounds great and it's working. Use what tools you have. If you got a company coming along offering you even a 1073 clone, you can't criticize him. It's a $500 preamp. Oh, well, it's not a real NEVE. Go buy a real NEVE. If that's your beef, it's not a real NEVE. Go buy the real thing. I have the real thing. It was sitting in the box. And I figured before people call my bluff, well, show me your NEVE. Let me go and put it in the rack. I have a real NEVE. This is the daily driver. I just like the way it sounds. It's a tool. And a preamp is a tool. Shazam, the iPad producer. Sup, brother? Is it an SSL clone? Oh, Shazam, the iPad producer. Oh, that's a killer name. I like that. Is it an SSL clone? It's a clone, but if you're going to talk about does it sound exact, you would have to put them side by side. And again, here's something for those who want to say what sounds like what and in what circumstance. For me, and I'll give you a professional perspective on it. Let's just say back in the day, I had a friend of mine who was a tech at the studio. Joe Tosh, I forget the name of the studio. It was downtown. He moved the studio to Philly. Not Sigma Sound. It was another studio. It'll come back to me. Anyway, he was a tech there. When equipment would go down, the tech had an oscilloscope. You needed an oscilloscope so you could benchmark what's wrong and fix what's wrong and bring the equipment back up to specification. The only real way for me to compare one against the other is to technically benchmark it with test equipment. I might be coming off as a bit opinionated, but to everybody's mileage may vary. We all don't have the same cables, the same environments. There's so many little microscopic variables that go into the quality of building equipment. It's so many variables. So to say how it sounds against the X Logic, everybody's mileage may vary. You would have to take both, put them both on the benchmark and say, okay, well, how close are they in terms of testing? Then use your ears as well. How do they sound sonically? You know, and everybody's opinion may vary from that perspective. So I won a Grammy this year for the reggae category, Coffee Rapture, and I'm still not happy with my. Dude, if you're serious, man, we need to talk offline. If you want a Grammy and you ain't happy, we need to talk offline, okay? So hit a brother up. The information is in my, the email. Let's talk, because it gets down to this, man. We're never happy. We're never happy. We always have to. If I only had itis, we're never happy. At some point, you're gonna realize as you get older, if you're a young man, that you got to put a period. Got to put a period. You have to buy tools for tools. When your tools are less than sharp, you need a sharper tool. It's that simple. To be going out and buying the latest, greatest. Perfect example. I'm using two Digi design, not even Avid interfaces. I paid tens of thousands of dollars for an HD2 system back in the year of 2007. Okay? Tens of thousands. I was working a lot. I could afford it. The investment paid for itself in 2 projects. I am still on Pro Tools HD8. I'm not changing. Why? Because I can't keep making Avid rich. There's not a person that is applauding this girl who won all them Grammys because she used Pro Tools whatever version. No one goes out singing the title of a console, the title of warm audio. You sing the title of the song. So if my equipment is serving my clients well, it's serving them well. I ain't out to give them another $10,000 for no system. Avid is to listen. If Avid is listening, I'm gonna tell you, you're raping people. Period. 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 You should only change out equipment if you know it is failing. When I was coming up, there wasn't a studio because Otari is introducing a brand new 24-track tape machine. They swapped out a tape machine. No, you changed the heads. The heads are worn, change them. Ain't nobody got 25, 30, 40, $50,000 to be giving Studio and Atari every time they come out with a new product. That's what Avid is doing. They're raping people. Meanwhile, UA is creeping through the back door, creating better products. They still trying to rape folks with their new stuff. Nah, I can't give them. Keep giving them money like that, man. Because in the end, if you're doing this professionally, the end has to justify the means. How do you at the end, when you're doing your taxes as a professional, how do you justify the $15,000 you just gave Avid? You better have been doubling that on a client project. If you weren't, then you wasted your money, period, as far as I'm concerned. Because you could have easily went out, bought a UA Apollo, and did the same exact thing for less money. So who's the fool? Avid know they're getting over on people. Avid knows they're getting over on folks. Now, if I have to, and listen, here's the funny thing. Here's the funny thing about dealing with Avid. I'm on a bit of a rant right now, so bear with me. I'm on HD8. I can take this session anywhere in the world and it will work. Because they got this little thing called opening up sessions in older generation software. Younger generation, well, I guess it'll be older in this case if they're up to like 12. So it's older. So I could take it, bring the whole session to somebody, they can open it and save it as a version 12. And guess what? If I want my version sent back to me in its entirety, I could say save session as what version? Version 8. Send it back the same way. You do your mix, you send it back. Who's the fool? Avid knows they're getting over on folks. So there's my rant about Avid. I'm done. Another question. Steps Ahead's Yin Yang album. Call me crazy, but I don't have the language to describe its sizzling, airy sound. Steps ahead. Yin yang. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that. But high end. I'm gonna have to check that out, and we'll have a better discussion in the future. But I can't comment on that because I've never heard it. My brother, your contribution to the community renders you a success. Thanks for what you do. Hey, listen, man. Thanks for saying that. I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. You know why I appreciate this? Because I've always had a heart for the underdog. You know, um, I have a professional career. I've been careful to nurture it in the best possible way. I was not like I said, I have tons of friends in the business that have had extremely successful careers, and I was not that guy coming up. I wasn't gifted with a crazy amount of of talent as some of my friends are. But what I have is a work ethic. I've always worked hard. I've always worked hard, and that's what I encourage everyone here to do. Don't get caught up in what you have. Like they say, do you take warm audio and do you go collect your Grammy? Period. It's that simple. You know. So I renders me a success. I've had a ton of success. Success is not measured in Grammy. Success is not measured in gold records. If that were the case, that's what I would have been chasing in my 50 some odd years. Okay. Never chased it. Guess what? Success is having your lights on. My lights are working. Food in my belly. I ate breakfast. The ability to pay tuition for my daughter's school. All those things are success. That's how I measure success. Everybody's measurement of success is different. And if I could impart wisdom to you from my personal worldview, then if that's benefiting and blessing you, then I've succeeded. So let's go get that music. Someone said, I hung up Avid years ago. Logic is done. Yep, perfect example. Yo, I'm going to tell you something. The sound coming out of Logic, I did a client project about 2 years ago on it, and I was like kind of stunned. That was giving me that 3-dimension feel that I was looking. I was like, yo, something's wrong, because when I bounce this thing over to the Pro Tools, it don't sound the same. You know what I did? I stemmed it out of Logic into Pro Tools because she was happy with it. I was like, I ain't gonna go rock the boat. You say it's okay. I don't know why but I know it had a lot to do with the computer I was using. It had a lot of horsepower, and the sound was just phenomenal. The current Logic Pro X, like I said, if I was starting out today, I would have that, a UA system. You're set. You're set. Experience. Any experience with Harrison consoles and their sound? Only the greatest album in history was recorded on it. Harrison, no experience with Harrison. I do know a Harrison was installed at Flight Time Studios. All of Janet's records were done on a Harrison. So that's the extent of my experience with it. I do have a friend of mine who worked at Unique, Michael Finlayson. You could hit him up on the Music, Audio, and Engineering forum and ask him about it. That's one of his favorite consoles, and he seems to be in love with their current console plugin. So that's a person, Michael Finlayson. He was a former mix engineer at Unique Recording Studios, very well credited, very well respected in the audio industry. So he's the guy that you would talk to about that. Gurna, you are hip to jazz. Keep it up. It's great you support the middle guy in music in New York. Middle guys are the good guys. Yes, I mean, everybody got to cross from the bottom through the middle. Ain't nobody arrived on top. Everybody starts out at zero. You, me, the dog, everybody. I just chose to hang there and give the guy that wants the experience, the best possible experience I could give him, the guy in the middle, because your ears know when something's lacking. Your ears know that the pros do it this way, and why can't I get it that way? Your ears know. So I hung back, and that was my focus. I've seen a lot. I mean, man, there's some people that I know that have had extremely successful careers. Successful, Grammy, Emmy, uh, um, Grammy, Emmy. Give me the third. Emmy is television. Grammy. Um, all three. Somebody chime in. I'm old. I'm having a senior moment. Grammy, Emmy, and what's the third one? Tony. Yes, Tony Award. If I've done a project with someone who has won all three, and when that person was younger, to be able to win all three, come on, I mean, that I feel like that's a blessing. I feel like I played an important part in their coming through. We weren't the best of friends, but the fact that I had an opportunity to sit in your greatness as you were on your way. You know how much of a blessing that is? To see people take small companies like small hip hop labels and blow them up to major, well-respected labels. It's a blessing to have witnessed that, to have an active role in their, success. That's a blessing, So, hey, man, I'm a blessed person, man. I don't know about you. Some people chase, all the money and nah, man, you got to be able to sustain yourself. You're engaged in a marathon. Music, if you're a professional, is a marathon, not a sprint. Every person that has sprinted to the top and has received the accolade is probably broke today with a whole bunch of Grammys on their shelf or platinum records on the wall. You don't stay on top forever. No one stays on top forever. But what is your focus as a professional? Is the question, And my focus was the guy in the middle, the guy on the way up. The pyramid at the top is narrow. Beyonce's the girl now. She ain't going to be the girl. Before her was Whitney. So nobody stays on top forever. Any advice for not feeling overwhelmed with lots of client work to do? I have a lot of songs to write and I'm getting burnt out for my current client's project. Management, time management, and delegation. That's the best thing I could tell you about the ability to not feel burnt out. You can't do everything. You can't be in two places at once. You can't do everything yourself. It's that simple. You got to be able to delegate. I'm in a similar circumstance right now. I have to edit client work for an audio book, which is extensive. It's not fun work. No, it is. I take that back. It's not fun. It's decent work. Don't get me wrong, because I don't want the client to get the wrong impression. But to be sitting and listen to someone narrate a book, come on. I mean, how much joy you got to get out of that when you're sitting and you got to edit? And I mean, it's work. You know what I mean? So I have a book. I have a client that called me up that needs some work done on two aspects for a nonprofit, for their upcoming event. And I have a litany of work to do with that. And I have an album to mix for a client. So I can understand we're feeling overwhelmed. But you have to know when you have to delegate things to certain other people. You got to know when it's time to delegate, you can't do everything yourself. You got to be able to and I have people I can call and say, hey, listen, I need you to take care of this or take care of that, because you'll drive yourself crazy trying to do everything yourself. Overall opinions of the UA version of these hardware clones, UA, they're close, but again, it gets down to, I don't know, that three-dimensionality is lost for me. So we're going to wrap up, folks, because it's been 2 hours. It's been great talking to you guys. If you have any further questions with regards to the warm audio products that you want my honest opinion on, feel free to email me. The email is warrenhenry127@gmail.com. That is what's on my YouTube. And let's chat. I'm about community. I'm about interacting. Every person that's been one of the greatest musicians that I've come across, they've always left the door open. One of the sweetest guys I have met in my life is Al Schmidt, and he told me a long time ago, if you ever have a question, feel free to reach out to me. And I'm the same way. Any questions, don't be shy, reach out. And if I can answer it, good. I know enough people in this business. If I can't answer it, to turn you in the direction of, so feel free to reach out. I love you guys. I appreciate you for hanging out. And it's a wrap. Okay, so you guys have a great afternoon. Talk to you soon.